Welcome back. Part two now of my interview with the director of the UC Riverside Center for Economic Forecasting and Development, Dr. Christopher Thornberg.
Here in the Coachella Valley, I think that the demand is outpacing the supply right now. Do you anticipate that's going to continue? And home prices, by the way, have skyrocketed over the past year.
Right. Well, let's be clear. They've skyrocketed everywhere in the United States, not just the Coachella Valley. And there's any number of reasons I can get into as to why this is the case. But as opposed to worrying about why, let's talk about the sustainability of it, because I think that's what you're really talking about. Yes, this is completely sustainable. There's no doubt about it, because we entered this pandemic with a very healthy housing market, a very clean mortgage markets, incredibly tight supplies, even entering into the pandemic. And even affordability. What's interesting is, as much as we talk about how expensive California is, if you look at the cost of owned housing relative to people's incomes, it's been falling, not rising, because the prices we see in California are the prices that are dictated by the limited supply and the well-heeled people who are able to win those bidding wars. The key here is not to worry about the price of housing, but to worry about the supply of housing. What you just said about the demand outstripping supply, that's not new. That's been going on in California for 20 plus years now. And of course, the solution to that is to figure out how the state can actually loosen up housing markets to allow those developers to go in and build the housing we so desperately need, which, to my previous point, is exactly what the state needs to continue its growth, since right now the biggest problem in the state is a lack of bodies.
Are you concerned about inflation and also what that will do for future generations?
Yes, absolutely. I'm concerned about inflation. Now, not this inflation. Inflation you saw a couple of days ago when that CPI report came out was truly eye-popping. There's no doubt about it. But that was largely a transitory phenomenon. Transitory because we're seeing a bounce back in prices after a weak year of price growth. And of course, we're in the midst of these really crazy supply shortages in some of those white hot parts of the economy, which yet again caused prices to rise. However, while this is relatively short term, what I'm worried about is this short-term transitory inflation turning into long-run serious inflation, driven, of course, by the incredible amount of monetary stimulus put in the economy by the Federal Reserve. Again, we have this cognitive dissonance between the Federal Reserve that tells us how terrible everything is, while the prices are telling us they're not. In fact, the problem is the exact opposite. There's too much demand relative to supply. They need to back off. They need to back off now and absorb some of this excess liquidity. Otherwise, you're absolutely right. Inflation, higher interest rates, what would cause an explosion in federal government spending on interest payments. These things are a big worry. And the way to deal with that is to, again, step back from these kind of preposterous ideas of an economy on the brink of breaking and start to recognize that the recovery is here. It's completely sustainable, and it's time to back off on the stimulus before we really cause some long-run problems.
All right. Dr. Thornberg, we appreciate your time. Thanks for joining us.
My pleasure to be here.